You are now listening to Femme Regard Podcast with Tessa Markle
and Carolina Alvarez.
Femme.
Welcome back, Femme. Thank you always for listening. We are now 4 episodes in to our season 7. So thank you guys for sticking with us. Yeah, for over 70 episodes. Like that is crazy.
My gosh. It was only yesterday. We were having tea, playing games.
Yeah, I know, right?
Toddies. It's so crazy. This whole experience has really been going so amazing for us. And I just love that we've been able to do it so long and stick with it. So thank you, Tessa, too, for being a great partner, and to all of our guests.
Absolutely.
And speaking of guests, we have someone else from across the pond. Tessa?
Sure. So today we have Elliot Grove from Raindance. And listeners, if you remember, we did an IG live with him on Raindance's IG a couple months ago. So now we're going to flip the tables and talk about Elliot. So welcome, Elliot. Thank you so much for coming on with us today.
Greetings from this very dull, damp, dirty, small island in the North.
I mean, likewise. That's where we are this morning.
It's just funny because we always hear Englanders talk about, oh, it's cold here, it's dirty here, it's this, it's that. Meanwhile, all of us Americans are like, take me there. I want to be there instead.
Yeah. 100%. I mean, we're having a smoggy morning here anyways. Once the highways opened up here, we went back from being the freshest air of any city in the world to back to smog town. So it ain't different. It's not any different.
Well, there's nothing happening in London. There's no planes, there's no train. Well, there are trains and subways and buses, but oh my God, it's quiet as anything here. It's like New Year's Sunday morning at 8 o'clock in rush hour.
Yeah.
It's very strange.
That's really funny.
Well, we do have one exciting thing happening over there pretty soon, and that's the Raindance Film Festival, which is actually personally how I had first heard about Raindance when I was researching film festivals a couple of years ago, I think, for the first time. So I think you had started the festival, in 93? Is that correct, Elliot?
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about what, first of all, took you over to England to start Raindance. I know you had started it really thinking independent film is what it was going to be about, and how it's kind of grown and everything since then.
Well, it's not that grand. I'm a farm boy from Southern Ontario. I ended up in London, first of all, in the mid-70s, working at the BBC as a stagehand, and some of the iconic shows like Monty Python and so on.
Oh, wow.
Got the film bug. Moved back to Toronto, was there for 9 years. I'd gone to art school in Toronto and I was painting sets in Toronto, did that for 9 years, came back in the mid-80s and fancied myself a property entrepreneur and was buying and renovating flats in the centre of London, doing really, really well until 1991, the last big British recession. I lost absolutely everything. And at that time, I was living in a country house outside London, one of the National Trust properties. So I had the big old house built 1,000 years ago, beautiful place. Mm-hmm. And the surrounding gardens, it was open to the public, and surrounding acreage was sheep. And the sheep farmer is an old guy. He died at the age of 106. He was so old. He was actually a barber in World War II.
Wow.
And he knew I'd gone bust, and he saw me for a whole year walking around, moping around, feeling sorry for myself. One day he called me on it and he said, you know what? No doctor in the world can help you as long as you're feeling sorry for yourself. So I said to him, well, what should I do? And he said, do what you love. And I remembered movies. The first time I saw a movie was when I was 16, because my parents didn't believe in going to the movies. They said the devil lived there. It was harvest season just outside Toronto on the farm. A part broke down. I'm the kid. I get sent to the local village. When I found out it was going to take 3 hours to get it repaired, it wasn't worth going all the way home and coming back. So I was 16, I had a few coins in my pocket, hot summer's day, and I was wondering what the devil looked like. And there it was, the house of the devil, just a few doors down from the house of the Lord. So I walked up and they were only charging, 99 cents to see what the devil looked like back then. paid my money. I walked down like a tunnel into a room, a bit like church, with chairs lining up
That's
facing
true.
the front. And I sat down. It was about 2:00 in the afternoon, and a couple other people there. I noticed the fabric on the chairs was red. The color of the devil, I thought.
The color,
They
naturally.
Guys, they turned the flipping lights off. I had no idea what a movie was. I was just told never, ever to go there.
Oh my God.
They turned the
what
lights
do you think
off.
was going to happen?
The curtains opened, and the first face of the devil I saw at the most tender age of 16 was Lassie Comes Home.
Oh.
And I cried like a baby. At the end, I tried to put my hand on the screen to see if I could feel the text. It was all gone. I was totally hooked. And this farmer saying, do what you love. Well, I love movies, but I'd lost all my contacts. But I am Canadian, so I started bringing people over from LA to teach filmmaking. My intern the first 9 months was a young 17-year-old by the name of Edgar Wright, you may have heard of.
Yeah.
And when about a year or so later, I met another late teenager. At that time, he was studying English at the university in downtown here. And that's because his parents were very middle class. And when he announced to them when he was about 16 or 17 that he really wanted to be a filmmaker, they went, why do you want to do that? So he was studying English. So if his filmmaking dream didn't work out, he could at least get a job teaching high school English somewhere. He joined the Film Society because they had a cupboard full of free equipment. And in his last year of uni, he then graduates, gets a really dumb job stacking shelves at Boots the Chemist, which is still here in Piccadilly. He would, on a Friday night, circle by the film sock, pick up the free equipment, and use my office as a production base for 9 long months, every weekend. He would shoot Saturday, Sunday, Monday. He'd give me back the key and went back to Boots. And he made a film for about $5,000 or $6,000 called The Following, which he remade 18 months later in Los Angeles, called Memento. I'm talking about Chris Nolan.
Yes.
So I basically started the festival as a thought experiment. None of us knew anything. We'd never, for 3 reasons. Can you make a film with no money? Because we're all broke. Could you make a film without any film training? None of us had been to film school. And could you make a film without having any experience? All of us were basically doing it. Edgar's first film was a film called A Fistful of Fingers, which I helped him with, which he might release now that he's rich and famous. And Chris Nolan, as you know, and many other people. So they started making films, and I didn't have any plan to start a festival. I decided to do it after these guys started making films. And yeah, I made every single mistake under the sun. In the 3rd year, it was so bad. We were so broke. The second screen was a bed sheet in a basement arts club just around the corner. I never used to tell this story, but I think I can tell it now.
Yeah.
But it's kind of gets bigger every year. And of course, this year we're dealing with something called public health crises. 3 words which I have grown to disdain. But I think, like you, we have to learn to live with it. And yeah, it's really gives me a bit of satisfaction to see all the people. Pretty much, there's many filmmakers have touched Raindance for the first time at the first point in their career, and that's always been our if you like, our way of doing things. It's like the what we say: discover, be discovered. So we have both ends of the entry and the distribution chain that we try to manage. So
yeah,
here we are.
I mean, that's so exciting, and inspiring, because you guys started from nothing, you guys didn't know what you were doing to start the festival. And then not only did great filmmakers come out of those humble beginnings, but Raindance is a big deal festival nowadays. It might not be as large in scale as something like Cannes or whatever, but you're a very well-known name. So, that's really exciting that it's grown that much, and that so many cool films and filmmakers have come out of that over the years.
Well, it's about being persistent. It's also about not listening to anything. I was the local disruptor when I started. All the industry here said, what the hell are you doing? Oh, this guy won't last. And fortunately, they were wrong, but they were very nearly right on many occasions in the early years. And we just keep going. We also have a film school with a lot of exciting MA, BA, and open, evening and weekend classes. That's what's kept us going. Without that, I think I would have gone back to street sweeping or some similar occupation.
I want to get into that as well. How did you go then from just doing the festival to developing the school? And because I mean, you guys have so many great things to offer. I mean, Carolina and I know we've been surprisingly busy this summer, but we're always on there checking like what classes are coming up. And
there's a lot of great resources
Yeah.
for sure. Especially like, again, like you guys didn't go to film school. We didn't go to film school. And it's just amazing nowadays that there's even so much more out there for a young filmmaker, or not even young, just a filmmaker to consume, to learn and grow their craft. So yeah, like talk to us about that.
Well, the film training we have is pretty unique. Well, first of all, we have this festival. So if you're good enough as a student to make a film, it can go in the festivals, which is unique. There's no other film school in the world that I know of that has that. But the training that we do is unique, I suppose, in that we don't teach filmmaking. So if you, Tessa or Carolina, wanted to learn filmmaking, you would be sadly disappointed with the courses we offer at Raindance, because we don't teach filmmaking, we make filmmakers. And it's a very different way of looking at it. Mm-hmm. In the same way as if you wanted to learn to ride a bicycle, you wouldn't sit in a lecture theater with someone and say, put your foot on this pedal and your hand on this handlebar. You'd actually teeter down the road and try to get the training wheels off as soon as possible. And that's kind of the philosophy we have. And also because I'm always trying to learn, we've never actually ever done a course unless I thought I wanted to do it or could do it. And for better or worse, we're still here. We're still vertical after all these decades. It's quite remarkable.
Yeah. And listeners, just to give you kind of an idea, I mean, they've got courses on everything from like budgeting and scheduling to contracts to every category you can think of. I remember there were some that I was like, that's a really good idea to teach a class on that. You know, it's not something I would have like even thought to look up a class for, but it's so useful. I know personally, I've learned pretty much everything I know about budgeting and scheduling from multiple Raindance classes that I've taken on the subject. So yeah, they're really amazing classes. I highly suggest listeners that you check it out. And Elliot, if you want to explain a little bit to the listeners how like the membership works and some classes are free and kind of what you offer.
Yeah. We do have a membership system that has 3 different tiers. There's the free one, which you get some free stuff. And every week we send to all of our members an email with tips and cool stuff, we think. Stuff that me and the team, there are 14 of us working here in London now, and if any of us see something that we think would be interesting, we collect it together and put it out. And then for £50 or roughly 60 some odd dollars, you can become a premium member and get 20% discount off all of our courses. And lots of free stuff. I mean, we do things, once a month I do something called the career surgery. It's me, and sometimes with a colleague. It's free to members. You can just come in and ask us stupid questions about what to do next, and we can give stupid answers about what we think you should do next.
I love that.
And then, something like the 99-minute film school that I do, and my friend does something called Directing Essentials. There's a few things like that. It's free. It's really, really worth. Plus, in the members area, there's over 50 lockdown sessions we started doing, over 50 different topics, everything from storyboarding to how to write your characters so they're picked up by social media using free hacks of using the same sort of stuff that Cambridge Analytica used. It's very fascinating, all that kind of stuff. And then, of course, all of our courses. And then for £100, $130 roughly, you get more mentorship. You can get me anytime you're on a project and so on. But hey, we're small. We're not that big. When you're in London, whoever's listening, but especially you, Tessa and Carolina, please ring the doorbell and come in and we'll give you the tour. We've got 3 studios next door, one editing with the 10 editing suites, and then 2 larger studios, one with a dance floor and mirrors, because we have dancers here as well. And that we make movies just about every single day.
Wow.
I'm like trying to go next year. So, Elliot, I might be at your door, and that offer better still stand, because I might want to bring out my leotard from back in my jazz days.
There you go.
Do a little number.
Are you a podcaster like us? Vlogger? Interview conductor? Do you need a VO booth or ADR? Remote audio video professional recording?
Ooh, Tessa, spill the tea.
Well, the Network Studios in Culver City is a fully functional recording oasis with multiple rooms made to cater specifically to audio podcasts, video interviews, and voiceover, plus an experienced sound engineer with the ability to edit and master. All your needs will be covered.
Audio engineer extraordinaire Mike Casentini has worked with several podcast heavy hitters and got us started from the ground up. He's the reason we sound so good. Plus, all of our in-studio guests have been very impressed.
To find out more, visit www.thenetworkstudios.com and book your next recording session. COVID compliant and open for business.
I just really love your story. What is it in you that kept you just keep going with this process? Especially, was it because you experienced such a great loss in your real estate that you're like, you know what do I have to lose? Like, I love this thing and this is what I need to stick true to. Just because, we all, if we haven't, will experience hurdles. So what has worked for you to just keep persevering during that time?
Oh, that's a tough question. 3 things. I've got a partner and 2 children who were very young when I started. So it was always having to figure out how to get food.
Survival.
But basically, the 3 things are, number 1, fear. Because if you screw up and quit, people think you're a loser. That terrifies me. But the second reason is I really enjoy what I do. And much of what I do is menial and repetitious, but it's your own thing. So I enjoy it. And if it was work, I wouldn't be able to do it. And the third thing is meeting people like you two, Tessa and Carolina, saying the nice things that you've just said about me. That to me is worth more than money or anything else. And really important from you two launching your career, more important than many famous people I've had the pleasure of meeting over the years, where they say slap you on the back and so on. Somehow it's more meaningful to get it from the grassroots up.
Mm-hmm. I totally hear that. That's like anytime we hear anything about some listener that we don't even personally know at all saying that they've heard our show and are inspired and, that they just want to, keep working on their craft. I think that is what, it sounds like you live for to do with your schooling too. Like I love that you said that you won't want to make a course that you wouldn't be excited about taking. Well, that's how we feel about the guests we have on our show too. Like we want to be so excited. Like, Elliot, we send you that email and you're like, oh yes, it's just like, it brightens our day. And so, I totally understand what you mean. And the thank you. We genuinely feel the same way. So
oh, that's good. That's
I
good.
love
You
that.
see, that's that kind of energy. You can't buy that. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
And right away, I felt when I spoke to you on that Instagram live that, I could share ideas with you. Mm-hmm. I could share creative problems with you freely without worrying about you saying, ugh. You could say that, it wouldn't bother me that you would feel free to say, well, that's a loser. But, I think the creative industries encourage that kind of collaboration, feedback, that sort of stuff is you don't get that working in anywhere else, I don't think.
I feel like that's kind of going along with like the Raindance schooling and stuff too. It's the same idea of like, you didn't go to film school and, you had said something earlier about like, you're only going to teach the things you can teach, but it's like you learn so much just doing it that you become an expert, even if you don't have like accolades to put, behind your name. Like I've had this conversation with a few friends out here. I'm like, I've taken so many classes in this city. I feel like I could teach, but I also feel like, well, what, I don't have like a specific degree for that, or like, I'm not famous. Like I have nothing to back that up with, but that's really not what matters. If you've got the knowledge and the drive and you're able to teach it, you're able to, be a good teacher, like that's all that really matters. And that's, people just want to learn from people that have learned to do those things themselves.
everyone can have a wealth of knowledge, but not everyone's a teacher. That's another thing. I think that is selective to a certain individual if they have that ability, so there's also that. So I think you have to ask yourself, do I have that in me too? And I think you sound like you, again, choosing material that you would want to be excited about and how you demonstrate it, that makes a good teacher. That's when I'm that is someone who knows how to teach. They can speak the independent filmmaker language too. And the business side, like Tessa was talking about, contracts and stuff. That's a lot of times, you go to a performing arts college like I did, and I wish I knew more about business type stuff, knowing how to read over a proper contract, So I think that's really important.
Yeah, well, that's the failure. Most people I meet, writers, directors, actors, whatever, they don't have any idea about the commercial side. And it's the film business. It's not the film art. And although there's the creative side, you need to be aware of the commercial side too. So we spend a lot of our time on social media trying to engage with people, and that's not filmmaking, but it's communication, and it's also storytelling. And I think basically what we do at Raindance, we're storytellers, and we assemble for the festival stories by other filmmakers from all over the world, it's storytelling.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit more about the festival for our listeners, because it's coming up. So if anybody's interested in attending the festival, I say with quotes, I guess, because it's online this year mostly, but or submitting for next year, a little more about what it is now, and especially this year with things being so different, and how that people can get involved.
Well, it starts on Wednesday, the October 28th, just in a few days from when I'm speaking to you, and then finishes on the 7th of November. For people outside of the UK, you can only see about 5 or 6 of the feature films because they're geo-blocked. Only UK residents can see it, just to protect the IP and the festival premiere status. But you could see all the shorts, all the virtual reality. We probably have the biggest collection of virtual reality, or the best collection anywhere. Yeah. And more importantly, over 35 industry sessions. These are 1 hour on Zoom, which you can join live, or they will be archived for you to come and pick and see whenever. If you want to get a pass to everything, it's only £15, which is what, $20, less than $20 for all that stuff, which is super cheap. And yeah, I mean, the films and filmmakers, they're all doing Q&As and all that stuff. Yeah, it's exciting. I think too, as a filmmaker, to be able to look at your colleagues' work at different festivals, including Raindance, of course, is a good way to measure your own level, to see how well you're progressing, and also a good way to form collaborative partnerships. Over the years at the festival, we've had many writers who've met producers, who met directors, who met actors at the festival. This year, we are doing 6 or 7 online, we call them boozin' and schmoozin', because but there's sort of topic. There's one for short filmmakers, one for documentaries, and so on. And even in this crazy world that we live in, we're finding a lot of people connect, as they connected when we were doing our Instagram live all those weeks ago. Yeah. As the listeners to your podcast will make connections.
Absolutely.
You need to be able to reach out. And we're slowly getting accustomed to this new normal of communicating with each other. A new normal, which I think is going to stay the way it is for quite some considerable time. It's not going away anytime soon, despite what your current president harps on about.
We all know he's wrong anyway.
By the way, the optics of what's going on in America, not only the forest fires, but the politics, is not very attractive from this side of the Atlantic.
Oh, it's not for us either. We just had our debate last night, and let me tell you.
I watched a bit. They replayed that in the morning. I watched a good half hour of it. before I had to leave. But
I was
wow.
writing a script. That's where my mind was.
I was shouting at my computer. So
I was texting Tessa my script notes. She was handling the debate for me. This is how we team it up, y'all. Let's
take turns on that
We
stuff.
gotta take turns. Yeah.
Well,
no, you're absolutely right. It's a weird world. It's the new world right now that we've transitioned to, and like any great independent filmmaker, you just have to adapt and make it work for you. And fortunately enough, we do have such amazing technology, and it's weird because I'm kind of more old fashioned. Like I prefer a face-to-face interaction on the phone, write you a letter, snail mail. Yes, I love that kind of stuff. It's like more personal to me. But I think we are learning more and more how to make it more of a personal, like meet and greet and way of connecting. And like, yeah, podcasts have been amazing. These IG lives have been amazing. And what you guys are doing, I think, we're going to have to learn to navigate it, because we're going to need to still connect. We're going to still need to make those connections. And like you said, that was such a great thing about going to film festivals is like meeting other producers and writers. And it's great that you guys are still finding like a solution for all of that, because I kind of felt like that was going to be lost now, you know?
Well, a lot of people gave up and lied down when this thing happened.
Yeah.
But I hope I don't sound too pompous. So I grew up on a farm, and when I left the farm,
I love that. I don't want to sound too pompous. So I grew up in a farm, just like throw that out there.
I was always embarrassed that I was a farm kid, you see. And it took me a long time to realize the learning I learned as a kid on the farm.
Very valuable.
To look for patterns of nature, patterns of animal behavior. So when the pandemic hit for the first week, if I can be honest, I was terrified. Then I started looking for patterns, and that's all we are doing, and all you are doing is looking for the patterns. And once you recognize the patterns, how you can use that to your advantage. And there's many advantages to the pandemic. First of all, you and I would have never met had it not been for the pandemic. We certainly would have had our now second talk, where I can talking on Zoom to you right now for your podcast or the Instagram Live. And that's really special. And the fact that you're not living a 20-minute walk away, you're living several thousand miles away in 8 time zones away. And we're talking as if we were in the same room. This is a hugely advantageous thing. And now that we are stuck with this way of living right now with the pandemic and so on, the people who use that to an advantage, and of course it's terrible in every way. Let's not say the pandemic is great, whatever. But looking at the pattern of how our lives have changed and how to use that creatively, I think that's the challenge. And filmmakers are innovators. They're also disruptors, and using what we've got and not what we want to have, which in my mind separates an independent filmmaker from, let's say, a studio filmmaker with their tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars. Right. You see, those guys are all screwed up. But a friend of mine here made a film called Host during lockdown. He's a traditional filmmaker doing really, really well. Rob Savage is his name. And he made it with 7 or 8 different actors in different locations. But when you look at it, you would swear to God they were in a studio, but they didn't. So when a girl's running down a white wall and there's a monster coming this way, it's a horror film, you think they're at the same place. But in fact, the guy is one place and she's in another. They just both had white walls and knew how to cut it together.
That's amazing.
And you would never guess that this was made without a studio. And of course, that film is now opening in cinemas here.
Yeah.
It's on Shudder. I think you can see it in the States. It's just incredible.
Okay. Yes.
And I could tell you many stories of people like that. Yeah. And these films are made for pennies, and literally pennies, not even tens of thousands, and to replicate. And of course, what will happen, like with Blair Witch, some 15, 20 years ago, that Hollywood will give some smarmy guy a lot of money to remake it and take all of the energy out of it and boil it down into something that is barely recognized, mushy with saccharine.
And
Yeah.
it's just not the same thing. Like at that
No.
point, then absolutely.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
this is definitely a time to be more innovative, and I think I love that. Thank you for sharing the host story. I definitely I want to see that. That sounds
You should.
so
You should try and see
fun.
it. I think you have Shudder.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
the
yeah.
horror Netflix.
Yeah,
Look at
I'm gonna look at host.
Yeah.
Real quick, what's some advice would you give our filmmakers out there on submitting to a festival like yours? What are just like real quick top advice for them to look out for?
Follow the submission guidelines, the rules and regulations.
Right.
You'd be amazed at how many films come in here without, the director's name on, without a press kit and all that stuff. If you want to get into any film festival, just make a film that is so bold, so fresh, and so original, where your idea is something that no one else has thought of yet, but which everyone wants. And when you come up with that idea, that script, and you make it, it's not about how much money you spent on it. It's about how that idea translates and how the story, how you get the story across. That's my advice. And of course, if you go to filmfreeway.com, they will list festivals by genre. If you've made a horror or a documentary or a children's film, you can find all those festivals. And then you need a bit of a budget, because festivals charge submission fees. That's how they pay for the people to look at your work. Just look through it. On the raindance.org website, there are a couple of useful articles. One is the top whatever horror festivals, top documentary, top festivals for shorts, if you've got a short, and so on. You can sort of click around on that and see what you want, or just Google. And more importantly, when you are going to go to a festival, Google that festival and see what other filmmakers years gone by, what their opinion is of the festival. There are some festivals with sadly terrible opinions, and others with really good trust with filmmakers.
Right. You save your money doing that. We've learned.
Yeah. and speak to other filmmakers who, that's why Raindance gets such good feedback, so to speak, is because we've had so many filmmakers over the years who've fortunately had a good time.
Yeah.
Despite the bed sheet, who've gone back and told their friends. So
love that.
Yeah. Well, to wrap up, let our listeners know exactly where they can find all this. So you did mention raindance.org is the main website, but as far as social media, all that kind of stuff.
Well, it's raindance.org on our website. Our Twitter is, surprisingly, @Raindance. Our Instagram is, even more surprisingly, @Raindance Film Festival. And I think between those, you will find us just about everywhere. We do, for your listeners, a weekly free newsletter. You just go to raindance.org. You'll see the button, put in your email, and you'll start getting bombarded with official junk mail from the from Raindance. Tips, ideas, crazy stuff, interviews, all that.
Yeah.
Yay.
We get it in our inbox. I always look for those emojis. Well, thank you so much, Elliot, for coming on today. This was awesome. I hope listeners, it was inspiring for you guys to just go out and start something. When you have an idea for a film festival, or to put together some sort of school learning situation, whatever, you just have to start and look
bold.
what it can grow into. Yeah. And be bold. Totally.
I love that. Right, Elliot?
Just do it.
Just
do it. Thanks, guys.
Thank
you. Have a great day.
Absolutely. You
Bye.
too.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Femme Regard Podcast. If you like what you hear, tune in next time for more tips on the filmmaking business and insightful conversations with industry professionals over tea.
We can only grow with your support, so please subscribe, share, rate, and give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcast. If you leave us a great comment, we might give you a shout out on the show. For more on us, check us out at femregard.com.